Morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for that reminder this morning. I really appreciate it.
Oh, the system sets it up. Don't think that I'm that with it in the morning.
I thought, oh, good. Hey, Derica.
Hey.
Good morning.
Morning. Are you still away?
Yes.
Lucky you.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Your hair is getting long.
Really long.
I like
did
it.
not recognize my hairdresser.
Is it your COVID hairdo?
Yes,
Good for you.
What
haven't been since February, I guess.
Wow.
I haven't either.
Well, it used to
I've
be
been
short
once.
hair, you know.
I'm trying to think. I think I went in like October.
Anne Marie, is your foot fully healed?
Not fully. I mean, I'm back to normal, but it's still sore.
Yeah.
So.
All I can say is for years when it rains, you may notice it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be running anytime soon, that's for sure.
Good morning.
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 Great day here.
Is it Friday?
It's Friday. I'm not sure whether every day feels like Friday or every day feels like Monday with Charlie. But anyway, we're all here, so.
Or every day feels like same day.
I beg your pardon?
I said every day feels like same day.
Yeah, it's kind of like ditto, ditto, ditto. So anyway, oh gosh. So looks like we're pretty much all here with the exception of Reverend Ross. And I don't
Matt DeFab.
And Matt DeSabatino, yes, thank you. Yep. And we have two attendees. Who are they? Okay, we have Sherry. Right. Well, wait a minute. Hopefully you all had a good weekend. And it sounds like we're gonna dodge a bullet with the snow this week. That's good.
The good news is that January is almost over.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'll be the bearer of bad news. February is the snowiest month on record.
But it's the shortest month too.
No leap year this year, so maybe we're good. Anyway.
I'm trying to find the positives here.
I agree.
Work with me.
I'm with you. I'm with you. The really positive news is the vaccination site yesterday went much better than the day before.
Yeah.
That's very good news. I have a couple employees who went through yesterday, and they said that they had literally very minimal wait, and there was concern about getting second appointments. And people I know who did persevere on Saturday got an email yesterday morning confirming a second appointment.
Wow.
So all of that's positive.
I'd love to just get the first appointment.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, well, I mean, Walgreens and Walmart and.
They're not taking anymore. They're all, they've got everything's filled up.
Everything's
really?
been filled for a week. And they said they'd be opening more up this morning. I woke up early and nah.
Yeah, it's a challenge, that's for sure. And likely to remain such. But Saturday, I gather that the backup on 113 was all the way down to Billsboro.
It took some people 4.5 hours, people with appointments.
Yeah, I know people who
Lovely.
waited, I know people who waited 3.5.
Yeah.
I know someone who waited 5
Ugh,
with an appointment, yeah.
ouch. Hmm.
Yeah, it was all the people in line that didn't have appointments that were ruining it for everybody else.
Yeah, apparently before they started on Saturday, there was a bit of a discussion about how people would, try to jump the line and stuff like that. And obviously it happened.
And I think there was a problem with the computers also.
Well, it was too cold. They had tablets and the batteries in the tablets, went dead because they were too cold. So
But did they, as people were getting in line, verify that they had the appointments? Or did they
apparently
wait?
that was one of the glitches. They didn't verify early on.
To me, that seems to be the simple thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, yesterday they resorted to paper rather than tablets.
Well,
And
I think too, you were supposed to download and complete like this form, and a lot of people hadn't done that.
that's right.
And that delayed it too.
Yeah. Well, there are many glitches that, anyway. Well, we've waited nearly 5 minutes here. Oh, who's the kitty cat? We have regular four-legged members of our committees here these days. Puppy dogs, kitty cats. We haven't had a parrot yet, but maybe they'll happen. I don't know. Anyway. So, well, let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully Matt and Reverend Ross will join us in a little bit. So the first item on the agenda is the approval of our minutes. It is it's January 25th and it's 8:30 and we're here for a meeting of the Downtown Business District Parking Committee. And the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. And I had a note from Janine this morning that she has not had a chance to complete them. So we do not have minutes to approve. So we'll pass on that one. So with that, then we can move on to item C1, which is a discussion and recommendation to council regarding the improvements to the Otis Smith parking lot. If you'll recall, Charlie, we had a good discussion at our last meeting about that parking lot. And at the prior meeting, Charlie had shown us several different types of layouts that could be considered. I think he came back with a proposal that we pretty much thought would work best last week, but we had no idea, or last time we met, but we had no idea about the cost. And Charlie's done some work and also trying to be environmentally sensitive to the fact that we're over there in a pervious area. And so Charlie, I'm going to turn this over to you. You've got some drawings and some cost figures you might want to share. Okay, I'm sure you want to share. Thank you.
Anne Marie, can I share?
Sorry about that. I should just automatically set it up so you can share.
No problem. Can everybody see that?
Right.
Yep. So there's no change to the concept plan that we discussed at the last meeting. It creates 20 spaces. And what we wanted to try to find out after our meeting was, what were the costs associated with creating this? So, and if you recall, we decided that I would try to get prices from contractors for the actual recycled concrete with asphalt millings on top concept and timber parking bumpers. So I've done that. We reached out to 3 contractors, 2 of which declined. George and Lynch responded. It's one of those projects that like an asphalt paver doesn't have a tremendous amount of interest. So like Jerry's declined, Teal Construction also declined, but we did get a price from George and Lynch, who's certainly a reputable contractor, for $21,600. And I've got that right here. And that includes, creating the 7,000 square feet of parking area with the recycled concrete base, 2 to 4 inches of base with 1 to 2 inches of asphalt millings on top. And then the parking bumpers as well, at the timber style. So $21,600. I mean, that didn't blow me out of the water. I think it's probably a cost-effective way to create this parking lot. But we were also charged with coming up with GMB preparing an estimate for, if you recall, a permeable paver alternative. Which, are you all sitting down?
I think everybody is.
Okay. So, Sherry and I put this together based on some of the prices, and we're just talking about permeable pavers in the parking spaces and still the recycled concrete and asphalt millings in the drive aisle. But we still estimate with the engineering getting permits that it's, around 130,000. That's my estimate. If we were to go to somebody like Clean Cut Pavers, maybe it would be somewhat less. But I figure even if I'm high by 30% or something, we're still looking at $75,000, $80,000. So it's a great idea. I just don't know that it's cost effective for what we're talking about, 20 spaces.
Yeah, especially since we're planning that this would all be a free parking. That would be, we'd not generate any revenue off of this space. So it would be and keeping in mind that you're only talking about the pervious pavers being in the actual parking area, but the drive lane itself would still be crushed. So that's a big differential. And I think one that would really hit the budget hard, considering all the other things that are Anne Marie's putting together the budget we're going to see, I guess, next week. I think.
And just for the committee's knowledge, we do have relatively recent pricing on this from some work that we're doing on Coleman Avenue. So, the unit prices that we utilize in this cost estimate, are based on those and some other data that we looked up. So I feel like they're pretty fair. Not to say that, if we went out to bid, we might not get a little better price, but I certainly don't think it's going to get anywhere near the, 21,600 that George and Lynch came in with for the other alternative.
What's the difference? I mean, for someone like me, that's a total layman.
Mm-hmm.
What's the environmental impact difference between the two types of construction?
So with the permeable pavers in the parking spaces, pretty much every drop of rain that hits is going to infiltrate through those pavers and down into the groundwater. So you don't have any runoff from that particular square footage of area. With what we have with the asphalt millings, it's going to end up being, it's certainly not as bad as asphalt pavement, but it's not too far underneath in terms of its impervious rating. So you're going to have some runoff directly from the parking lot, back into the area behind the parking lot, behind the hotel, that area back in there. That's basically.
Am I accurate in that area sort of floods now under certain conditions, or no?
Well, it gets, it does. The Midland Avenue gets really bad now under really heavy storms.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we always have some tidal flooding coming across from the wetlands on the wastewater treatment plant side of Savannah Road that sometimes affects this area. But, we're not really changing too much the impervious rating of what's there now. Even
I was just going to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much hard pan, and even where there's parking now, you've got, stone. So it's pretty much the same for that area.
And another just quick question is, are there grants available from the state or federally for this very reason, where, investing in something that makes an environmental impact is too costly for the municipality? They sort of come in and help, augment the cost, or?
There are green project grants, but it's a relatively long process. I mean, it would take an application, the state would have to review a pre-application. They review that, determine whether it's a worthwhile project. What they do is they prioritize all the applications that they receive. So I would say it takes like nearly a year or so to work all that out. We could possibly get some grant, but I can't sit here today and say that we would. The state would have to weigh in on that through the process.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
I see Matt DeSabatino joined us too, so Matt's with us now. So, any other comments?
Probably, I couldn't see in the first estimate how long did they estimate that it would take?
George and Lynch,
45.
10 days, 10 working days.
10 days. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this proposal, the George and Lynch proposal, could easily be ready by the meter season or by the prior of season, where the other one, we'd have to put it out to bid. That would certainly add a few months to the process. Okay. Any other comments? Is there a sense of the committee as to how wanting to recommend one over the other to the council, or do we want to put both of them in and let them consider? What's your preference?
I guess I have a follow-up question to that then, Mayor. If we go with the first option, you mentioned you would have to do that and then lay the pavers over top. So theoretically, could you still do the paver option down the road?
No. Because when you do the permeable pavers, that's one thing. People don't always realize that there's not just the permeable pavers that sit on the surface. There's a whole system of stone underneath that's, significant costs associated with it. And that we would not be putting in that base as part of the 21,600.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Basically, as I understand it, Charlene, correct me if I'm wrong, the George and Lynch would be basically scraping what's there and leveling it and then putting down additional on top of it, correct?
Yeah, yes.
And then putting down the timber pile, timber parking bumpers.
Yes.
Any other comments?
I guess for me, I would prefer to give both options to council. I think at the highest level here, philosophically, we're in a very environmentally sensitive and protected area in general. We're near the sea, and I feel like there's a broader question about what is our overall, what is our, I don't know, our strategy about building in general around town. And I personally don't have visibility, or I'm not equipped, and I shouldn't be, on what budget impacts are. Like, I don't know. I mean, I can see 130,000 is a lot more than 21, but I don't have any context on how big an impact that really is to the overall budget and what you've got in the bank and all that kind of thing. I think for me, I'd love to hear council have a discussion on, in general, what is the philosophy of building. And I think once you start there and make a decision on that, it would carry through to all your projects.
I could also say that the pavers would have a longer life.
Once you get these asphalt millings down over the concrete base, I mean, that Schley Avenue parking lot's been in place for 7 years now. I think it's going to last a pretty long time. Equally as much as a permeable paver alternative.
Are there any upkeep issues in terms of, maintaining it and ensuring it lasts? I mean, I know on asphalt, you sometimes have to uh, you spread that stuff over it to keep it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, it is a good point, because our experience has shown that from time to time, and it's difficult to figure this out now, but you might get some places where the tires really impact or make turns and they create little ruts, and you have to maintain those. I know we had issues like that down at Canal Front Park in that stone parking lot down there. And you've got to just see what's going on, and that's maintenance that usually the maintenance department of the city takes care of.
Yeah, and I think in Canal Front Park, where we've had to maintain that is in the drive lane,
Yes.
not the parking area. Keep in
Yeah.
mind that we're talking about the drive lane still being crushed stone or millings. So the maintenance would be the same. The one thing my experience with pervious parking lot has been is that sometimes you get, because it's pervious, sometimes you get weeds and grass growing in through the pervious pavers. And then you have to go in and spray it in order to do weed control if the lot's not actively used. Again, that's something that probably could be managed by the city's streets department or something like that. So it's not heavy duty maintenance, but in terms of rutting, what's gone on in Canal Front Park, it's been particularly on the inbound lane or the inbound access to Canal Front Park where people turn is where we've gotten the rutting, not in any of the parking areas themselves.
Yeah, and that one's unique because you're coming down a little bit of a slope and making your turn into the parking area. So you have all that weight as you're making the turn kind of to the front of the car or the vehicle.
I had one last question, and that is the use of the wooden bumpers. Given that area floods, will that be an issue with kind of the lifespan of those wooden bumpers?
I don't see that. I don't know that area, correct me if I'm wrong, floods that much. I mean, you got a lot of water back behind it, and you do have some water coming across Savannah Road, but I don't know that this particular parking area is underwater a lot.
Yeah, and I would think that any bumper that's put down would be treated, put down with treated lumber, and you wouldn't be, and would also, I would think, although it's not in your proposal here, but I would assume that they would be, well, it does say secure each timber. So yes, you're planning on securing them, so they're not going to float away.
That was my other concern.
Yeah, they are secured. Yeah.
So
People would be parking all over the place with their bumpers.
yeah, really.
Floating around.
Okay. So Derek, you had a good point about sending it to council. What do the rest of you feel like? Do you want to just send both proposals to council and let the council hash that out, or do you want to make a recommendation one over the other based upon the information here that Charlie's provided?
I think I would agree with Derica to present both of them, just for the simple fact that there's such a massive difference from a price standpoint, and there needs to be for the council to understand why it's that different. I think that that's important, instead of just saying one was this much and one was the other, an explanation on both. And then I always go back to this. There's always the question of the level of effectiveness that we're going to have. And, it's hard to, whether we spend 20 or 120, how effective are we going to be? So that's just the thoughts in my head as we look at this.
Okay. All right. Is that a consensus? Could we have a motion to make both proposals available to council and let them make a decision?
I move that we present to council both proposals.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay. A motion and a second. All in favor?
Yep.
Well, Andrew, we get to carry that one to council. We'll have that discussion ours. Okay, thank you, Charlie, for doing the homework on that.
You're welcome.
And let's move on to item C2 is regarding the Little League area. I have not had a chance. Andrew, have you had a chance to follow up at all?
I have not.
Okay.
Apologize. No.
Okay. All right. Well, if we can do something, we're getting down to the wire here with providing a report to council. If we can get something, that would be good. If not, we'll have to leave that one alone. I do have, in terms of the other item, Beebe Hospital at grade parking areas. I think I shared last month or last meeting. We do have a commitment from Beebe that we can utilize their at-grade parking. That would be down where the nursing home was and other areas behind Bethel Cemetery for overflow parking. That would have to be identified and marked, but they are willing to allow us to do that, use that during non-regular business hours, Monday through Friday. Again, it goes back to what Nancy did last year with this committee in showing us how obscure our signage is. And I have a funny anecdotal story that I learned yesterday from a 5-year-old. I was in one of the stores, and this little kid, I'd seen him on Saturday, and he's a very animated little kid. And he was with his parents, and his parents were saying that they live in Annapolis, but they have a home in Bethany. They'd never been to Lewis before. They came to Lewis, and they didn't recognize that there was a downtown. Their destination was going out to the Freedom Boat Club. And so they came up to the traffic light, made a left, and drove out to the end of Powhatan Road, did their thing with Freedom Boat Club, and on their way back, they stumbled into downtown. And the parents said, we thought this was a rinky-dink little town. So this 5-year-old standing there talking to me says, I was in this what's going on in this little rinky-dink town? This 5-year-old, so it was really cute. But the parents were quick to say, we just didn't know that you had a business district, and they had been there on Saturday and made purchases, and they were there yesterday making purchases. So I think it underscores how much we really need to, coming out of the mouth of a child, how much we really are missing informing people of how important our downtown district is and getting people to visit it. So I think we have a real opportunity here to improve that. So that then leads to a discussion about the importance of signage and social media postings, and how do we we're all going to be able to attend the merge meeting on Thursday evening, and I understand from Anne Marie that he's going to be able to break that down into just the signage for the parking. Is that correct, Anne Marie?
He did tell me he would provide that estimate.
Okay. So we'll have that information. It is, but then Betsy, social media kinds of things, and Derica, you're very up on social media. Any ideas about how we might better utilize social media to get, I know we're talking about Betsy, you putting things on the maps, but paper seems to be somewhat obsolete in the age in which we're living these days. How should we tackle the social media component of helping people find us, to find parking?
What is this? Is there any dedicated staffing just for social media for either the city or the chamber?
No.
Well, Anita does all of our social media. The problem is that, we have a great ability to reach our locals with social media. There's, the I Love Lewis group and the other ones that we set up, the Love, Lewis one and the Chambers one. But it's people like the one you suggested that are coming from Annapolis for the day that, we don't target that kind of information. People really aren't looking for that sort of thing until they get here. Like Matt was using the anecdote at the last meeting about how, you know, the people that are coming here, just like any of the rest of us, when we go to a city that we've never been to before, you know, you're kind of looking around for the signage to show you where to go and that sort of thing. That I think social media can be useful, but in this case, I really think it's going to come down to the signage.
Erica, you have any further comment on
I think generally I agree. But I think there's some opportunity, and I managed a team of marketers, but I wasn't the one doing it anymore. And I'm not a millennial anymore either. So I think there's a way to, if somebody's already searching on Lewis, so they know they're coming to Lewis, they're like the Freedom Boat Club people, or someone else making a day trip or a weekend trip, and they're already doing searches. There's a way to push out and sponsor. You've seen it yourself where you kind of get freaked out where you're shopping and then all of a sudden you're getting all these ads for the same product, right? There's a way to drop a cookie or to track that and then to push out advertisement, in this case, parking, for example, so that they're not searching for it. It actually gets pushed out to the viewer. There's a whole bunch of tricks like that that I think we could take advantage of.
I think the Google
I
Maps,
could be wrong in this, but I'm just gonna, so please push back. I don't have visibility into everyone's operation. But it's something I experienced myself in my corporate role, is if you don't have a dedicated budget and a dedicated team with dedicated goals, you're really not going to make much impact on social media or otherwise. In general, I'm just pointing that out. It's hard to do. You need to be active. You need to be posting all the time. It needs to be more than one person. I think there's one dedicated employee. It has to be a whole community that's making a lot of noise, basically, or a department that's dedicated to it. It is a limitation. I'm just pointing that out. It's not insurmountable. I do think, Betsy, that it might be good, and I'd certainly be a proponent of this, to have a whole dedicated chamber meeting around social media, where at least we could get some of the businesses to dedicate some of their time marketing, not just marketing their store or their restaurant, but marketing the town. I, for one, am a huge proponent of that. I mean, if we get the story out about how it's such a great place to visit, it's going to naturally trickle down to our stores, for example. I could actually make the argument the dollars that I spend trying to market my individual store in some ways are wasted, because I have a small budget. But if we all kind of brought our budgets together, we could make a bigger impact together. I'm not sure if everybody else on the chamber membership would agree with that, but that's how I feel, that I would absolutely be willing to share some of my small budget to the greater good. I think I could make a bigger impact overall. So I don't know if that helped at all, but and I was just thinking, and I don't know if we tap them out. I don't think we have. It's such a large group, but the Love Lewis campaign that the chamber created, I had a relationship with it's called DECA. It's Distributed Education. What's the C? I forget what the C is, of America. But they are a group of marketing students. It's a national organization, and they're in high schools. And the DECA group at Cape Henlopen has several hundred members. They are looking for internships and ways to get involved. They got involved with the Love Lewis campaign, and they were absolutely terrific. We had originally asked them to get our social media pages up and running, which they did, but just as quick as could happen, they're also raising their hands to do other things. They ended up being ambassadors on the streets. They ended up planting the signs all across. And I think I'm fairly certain there might be a way to tap into them to augment marketing for the chamber, the city, whatever, parking, multiple things.
Betsy, has there been any discussion with Southern Delaware Tourism about anything like this in terms of social media presence for municipalities or chambers?
Well, they're marketing the whole county.
Right. No, but I meant
Yeah.
as, you know, what individual municipalities are doing in terms of, like, have you heard from Bethany or Rehoboth or Laurel or Seaford about what they're doing through, you know, in terms through social media?
No, I mean, I know that the larger chambers, you know, do that as part of their marketing plan, and then they do it as part of their marketing plan. But the point that Derica brought up too about on Google Maps, you get those ads. Those are paid ads that, you know, one of the things we might look at is establishing a budget for this very thing, so that, you know, if they put in Google Maps that they want to go to Freedom Boat Club, as they're getting close to 2nd Street to turn down on Front Street to Pilot Town Road, an ad would come up that would, you know, promote our parking lots or our business district, that sort of thing. But I know for a fact that Google ads are not cheap.
Another idea would be, just like I was saying, that the businesses we have small budgets, but we have budgets and time that we allocate towards marketing. And if we group together, we would have a bigger influence, is my argument. If you think about it, there's lots of organizations that are trying to get people to come to Lewis. So the Lewis Historic Society, Cape May Lewis Ferry. Could we get together and identify some of these groups to, again, have a shared marketing plan? Because I might be wrong, but I think one of the big bottlenecks is budget and people and resources. And if that's the case, I think there might be an opportunity to share those resources to make a bigger impact. And again, giving it just an example, I'm spending marketing dollars saying, come to Deanna's, come to Henlopen. That's not I mean, I like our stores, but that's not a real compelling story to get people from Annapolis to come to Lewis just because of us. But what would be is, let us tell you all about all the wonderful history here and the places you can go and the museums. And oh, by the way, there's, you know, I don't know, really wonderful dining experiences here and biking and the trails. I think we could do that. And I'd be happy to volunteer my time if that's something that people think is a good idea.
The other thing that I think could make an effective campaign, Jeff had mentioned this from the, you know, we started talking about lots, is the naming of the lots and sort of branding them rather than colloquially referring to them as the, you know, the Daily Mart lot or the Schley lot, is actually naming, you know, naming, branding. And I just was going to bring up an idea of maybe it's worth creating a page specifically for Lewis parking, kind of like a Facebook page or an Instagram page. And maybe you start the process by allowing the community to sort of participate in naming the lots and put them out there and raising awareness that these exist and get some participation that way. Then we start to name them, etc. That's just an idea.
Andrew, I was thinking along those same lines, and it was, you know, because of Derica's earlier points, the social media platform sort of that we're talking about could be a Lewis parking platform, but all of the other advertising and messages could all come from that same platform, but you drive it with the parking and where do we park, where do we go, what the names of these parking lots are. But then all the other fluff and good things about Lewis can be a part of that same platform, but drive the whole thing from, here's where you park in Lewis. If you're coming to Lewis, this is what you can do. This is what we offer. Here's where you park. Here's what we do. Here's what we offer. This is where you park. And, you know, have this like, you know, very, it can be very broad, but I think the reason for the platform should be parking driven. And then all the other ads, so to speak, or information can come from that same area, I think.
I realize we're parking and we're not the city of Lewis Tourism Bureau or the Chamber of Commerce or any of those things. But based on my experience driving around taking photos of our signage, right now as we were talking, I turned my phone on and I kind of thought, if I was someone who didn't know Lewis and I typed Lewis into a search bar, what am I going to get? And I went to Wikipedia. And they had something there, a drop down for notable events. And I'm thinking, I wonder what they have there. And I'm thinking of the things that I think of as notable for Lewis. The only notable event there was that in 2013, the helicopter drop of the cash. Okay. So, but
That's a bit dated for sure.
I think so. Maybe we'll get a few people digging for dollars or something, but I'm wondering too, and this is going, I think, outside of our purview as a group, but I'm wondering if using the Love Lewis and these other groups that we already have, if we shouldn't be looking to encourage people to do Yelp reviews of their favorite things in Lewis, to stock those up more, and then also to edit this Wikipedia page so that it tells more of the story of Lewis, fact-based, but to provide information that would actually be helpful to people who are thinking of visiting. I'm just trying to think of, I think we'd have to have a group brainstorm more about, if you didn't know Lewis and you're driving and you have your phone, where are you going to go to search? And Yelp and Maps and Wikipedia were probably the first three that I thought of. But I realize I have gray hair and that I may not be going to the sites others may be.
Nancy, I was thinking the same thing, to be able to look. I'd be curious just to see, if I don't have anything right now that I could put in Lewis and see what comes up. But what else was there besides Wikipedia? Was there anything else beside the chamber? What else can people click on to find out about Lewis?
Well, it probably is if you've watched any of these movies on algorithms, of course, when I type Lewis in, it's going to show me all of the places that I usually go, like the city of Lewis, okay, the city site or things like that. So I may not be getting what someone who is unfamiliar to Lewis would get. But certainly the Chamber of Commerce comes up. The order in which I see things is City of Lewis, Chamber of Commerce, and Wikipedia. And then some interesting finds on the Historical Society or articles from the Cape Gazette. But keep in mind, part of that is going to be based on my personal historic search history. So.
Right. All right. Yeah, because I'm going to be curious when I get off to look up and see what it says, and if I didn't know, where I would go. And
I'll call my extensive list of relatives who have not visited yet, which you wouldn't believe given the number who have, and stay with us, and see if they can do a search and tell me what they see, because they'd be coming at it as someone who hasn't been doing a lot of Lewis searches in the past.
Right.
There is that website of lewis.com, which is very, very dated.
Yeah, that also came up, sorry.
And so but it's, Betsy, is it possible on the chamber site for you to have a drop-down box that says parking?
Sure, we can do that. I just Googled parking in Lewis, Delaware. Mm-hmm. And it comes up with the main parking lots. It's got the Junction and Breakwater Trail, which is the free parking at the library. It's got the city parking lot. It's got Lewis Beach parking lot.
Okay.
How much is parking at Lewis Beach? And it comes up with the prices.
Right.
That sort of thing. So if you put in parking, there's information there.
Okay. Well, maybe that's one way to get started with this, but I do think, all the suggestions that Derek and Matt have made in terms of putting together something that would be more of an outreach are good. And certainly the Love Lewis campaign, if we could, encourage that to go somewhere with parking, that might be helpful too. But if the chamber could add a drop box where,
A drop down.
Yeah.
Part of the drop down.
say, parking in would be helpful.
Yeah, can the city do that on their website as well?
I'll ask Anne Marie. I think we probably can. Yeah, she's new.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I think if we did that, that might be a way to get at least people out. We'll get information out to people because certainly people go to the chamber site, they go to the city site. I know the lewis.com site has been for sale. I don't know, did it sell? And,
It was sold.
was it? Okay. I don't know who the current owner is. Do you?
So.
Okay.
Interesting.
Mayor,
I
Mayor.
also just did a search on parking, and probably the second thing that came up was TripAdvisor, and the top answer to the question of are there parking problems in Lewis? Do I need to bring a supply of quarters? Is one from 2015 saying yes, bring a lot of quarters. So it might be worthwhile to try to go in and update these things. It's easy to go in and just write an answer and
Absolutely.
Yeah. Park Mobile, that was before Park Mobile.
yeah.
Before Park Mobile, and
Yeah.
now we have several no charge lots, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think you're absolutely right. Answering a TripAdvisor review like that, especially one that's so dated, is really something we can do. We just haven't looked there. So it sounds to me like this is well beyond the purview of this downtown parking committee, but yet it's relevant.
Yeah.
And so, maybe Betsy, can you kind of put together a group of people to sort of work on that to see how we could do that, and we can include that. Okay.
Mayor, can I just add one thing? Just listening
Please.
to everybody, all good stuff. And I was just thinking that and I think Derek was alluding to this. You've got businesses in Lewis that already have a really large reach, social media wise and website wise, like Dogfish Head. Probably the Cape May Lewis Ferry's got a large reach that if we could come up with, the information that we want to share to influence people to come to downtown Lewis or whatever, the museums, whatever, and somehow get it involved with their websites, then it's right out of the gate. You got a big reach.
Yeah, I would think that the ferry would be very interested in doing that, especially, they're trying to market more foot passengers and things like that as well. So I would think they would be Michael Porch has been very receptive to working with the chamber over the years.
Yeah, I think they've eliminated the foot passenger program now with COVID.
Well, yeah, but
You can only come over in your car.
absolutely, temporarily they've eliminated it. Yep.
I
just-
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to point out that, the 10 minutes that Nancy spent Googling what information's available, and we clearly found that a lot of it's stale. That is a clear sign in marketing that you do not have a dedicated team, because that's what it takes. So in my view, it's no criticism of anyone unless there's a dedicated person who's responsible for updating information, right? Getting the story out on a regular basis. That's what you're going to get. So it ends up being whack-a-mole in a way. So we might update it today on TripAdvisor, and lo and behold, we'll check in a year from now, it'll be stale again.
Right.
And that's why I go back to, and Charlie just said it better than me, could you even go to some of the bigger players, the Cape May Lewis Ferry, maybe the city kicks in a little money, maybe the chamber, maybe some of the individual businesses, and we get a dedicated 1 or 2 people. It does not have to be that expensive. And there's, I think, people looking for internships and other things like that, where you've got this dedicated small team, because our message, I believe many of the messages we want to get out across those different organizations are the same or should be the same. And it's all about, why is it so amazing to come and visit Lewis? It's not about my individual store in a way. To me, it's here are all the things that are really incredible here, and why you might want to come. I'm just going to say it, I'm beating a dead horse, but I'm going to say it again. And I am willing to volunteer in any way.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think right before you started to speak, I was thinking the same thing. And I do think we've probably come to a point where the city, it's exhausting to manage social media if you're, the owner or
Absolutely.
city manager or the mayor or who, we don't have time to do it. And it takes a specific role and a job. And I just think moving forward that the city should continue to talk about the idea of creating one position or, a couple people to take that on, because we're all kind of discussing the challenges of how to do it and accomplish it, but it would take a dedicated, person to make it successful for sure.
All right. Nancy, did you have something you wanted to say?
So I was moving on to a different topic. So
Okay. All right.
let's finish this one first. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
okay. All right, fine. We do need to move on to the next topic too. Because I think, we're all in agreement here that there is a need to, as we've seen from just our little quick searches here, everything that's out there right now is pretty dated. And so I think this is something that warrants a lot of exploration, and we can include that in the report that we submit. Unless there's further discussion about social media, I think hopefully all of you will be able to tune in on Thursday evening to listen to the presentation by Merge. I think that will be very helpful, and also give us some idea of what we're looking at in terms of their recommendation for signage and the cost associated with it. So
what is the time of that meeting, and is it a city council meeting?
City meeting at 6 o'clock. It'll be, you can be on Zoom.
Okay.
Anne Marie, could we maybe send a reminder to this committee just of the link?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I don't want to delay pushing on through the agenda, but I had a question that I'd wanted to ask during this meeting, and it came from out of some thinking about our last meeting, where we had been looking at 3rd Street and areas where cars actually are permitted to park on the street, but they don't seem to be aware of it. And is there any easy way for us as members of this commission or committee or members of the public to identify where in Lewis on public streets there is no parking marked and where there is parking permitted?
I think all streets are pretty much available for parking with the exception of minor areas. One side of the street may be not available for parking on some of the smaller streets, particularly between like the state name streets over off of Kings Highway and things like that. But generally speaking, on-street parking is pretty much allowed throughout the city. I'm not sure how would we identify, what would you want to do there?
Are there any city maintained streets on which no parking is permitted on either side of the street?
Yeah.
I'm not aware of any off the top of my head.
Coleman does.
Coleman, yeah, Coleman is right. Okay, that's good.
Just top of mind for paving.
Just a little just a little tiny street, 1 block long.
Yeah.
But I'm not aware of any others that are.
That's the only one I can think of.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'd like to move on then, if we could, to a discussion regarding recommendation regarding the possible increase in metered parking fees in the downtown area and possibly the hours of operation. We know that we suspended parking in the early part of the summer last year because of COVID. And then we went to a delay in implementing the parking on a daily basis for the balance of the summer until noon. That seemed to be a very popular item. As you all will recall, currently our meters operate from 9 until 8 p.m. I think we need to talk about Do we want to continue 9 to 8? Do we want to think about some alternative, 9 to 11, being no longer charged, or do we want to leave it at 9 to noon? And then it's been many years since there's been any kind of, I think it's 7 years now, since there's been any change in the cost of the meters downtown. And one of the discussions we had early on was the idea that we could incentivize people to use parking that was not right in front of the store if they were aware that it was less expensive, or not, there was no charge associated with it. Keeping in mind that I think in the surrounding communities, we have the least expensive parking in our downtown area. Our beach parking is $1.50, and our downtown parking is $1 an hour. So I throw it open for discussion.
Beach parking's 2.
Beach parking's 2, thank you. Yes, right.
That was increased a
Right.
couple of years back,
Right.
but
Thank you.
but
Yeah.
downtown has not been increased.
And is there any pushback about increasing the cost of the beach parking when it was done?
And there was no pushback when we extended the hours either, minimal.
I would just say that the beach parking customer and the downtown parking customer are probably 2 completely different sort of groups. And it doesn't surprise me at all that you wouldn't get any pushback from the increase from the beach parking.
Okay,
You
I
know,
think that's true. Yeah.
yeah.
Any other comments?
What does,
Carolyn?
what does Rehoboth?
I'll just do what I said. Okay.
Rehoboth charges $3 an hour for Rehoboth Avenue and Wilmington and Baltimore. Then their fees go, they have a lot more meters than we do, but then their fees drop as you get to more distant parking.
Well, and I guess one of the things that was mentioned in an earlier meeting is, should we look at kind of the zone parking where maybe we charge more on 2nd Street and less in the outlying lots?
Right.
Do we know from Rehoboth, since they have, it sounds like, Ted, you said they sort of have a zone system where you pay less further out?
Right, further out, yeah.
Do we know how that's working for them or not working, or?
Been in place for years, so I don't
Oh,
know.
okay, okay. So it
It's
must
not-
be working. That's the answer. Okay.
What they've done recently to their parking is that they've changed the hours of operation. Used to run until midnight. They've cut it back to 10 p.m., which makes sense. I mean, I think they were finding there was nobody parking at midnight in downtown Rehoboth. I think that was a change they made maybe 2 years ago.
If we were to consider doing zones, I'm just, in my head, I'm trying to think of where the zones would be. I mean, I think obviously 2nd Street, I think people would think would be the most expensive. But, Rehoboth is a bit larger in terms of the number of streets you can kind of fan out onto in terms of zones.
The opportunity to do zone parking is really small in this town, unless we charged a different fee for parking in a lot versus parking on 2nd Street. When you think about, the meters are only on Bank and Market and on 3rd Street from Market to Savannah, and then a couple meters on Front Street. So there's really very few meters that are around. I'm not sure how you would define a zone within that small of an area.
Yeah, it makes me think our discussion is really probably more about, do we increase the fee for parking?
I think you might be right, yeah.
Certainly, if we can get Schley, into a much more attractive lot, being able to, charge a bit more for the parking on 2nd Street, but have signage or something that makes clear there is free parking available at several locations, might really entice people to go to those. And in terms of timing, it might be better to really consider this, and I'm really just thinking aloud here, consider it at the same time when we actually have those nicer free lots opening.
Right.
Um,
Well, hopefully, you know, depending on how we move on, how council moves on this, it could be this meter season.
Yeah.
Because we're not talking about significant, depending on what happens over on the Otis Smith lot, we're not talking about significant construction activity to create the spaces that we're talking about. The M&T lot would be, we backed off on doing any major activity there. And so, you know, it's conceivable it could happen this spring.
Going along with what Nancy just said, could we think about, you know, the increasing of the rates, I think on 2nd Street where it's most desirable, I think, to park is what we're saying. And think about using the money generated from that to connect the lots via a trolley or jitneys or whatever. Because if you think about it today, the Schley lot is free. There is paid parking on 2nd Street, yet we're getting no one going to Schley. So we're going to have the same issue unless we solve that issue.
I was actually going to ask that point, Derek. I was going to bring up the idea of maybe inviting some business to do the bike jitneys, and putting that idea out there that, hey, you know, Lewis would be interested in entertaining bids for, you know, like I described, just some kind of a bike, like a rickshaw almost, and then they could have one at the Beebe lot, one at the Schley lot, and it can be a fun experience for people getting back and forth to those lots potentially.
And those models are all over and in very historic areas. Charleston, South Carolina, jitney service everywhere. The rickshaws, for example.
Rickshaws are probably.
I don't know the cost to operate that or what that would entail, but
We could let a private business do it, you know.
I believe they're private, correct?
Yeah, that's what I mean. We could have people make a bid to do it. See what their proposal is.
The challenge with a rickshaw from the Franklin Avenue lot is getting across Savannah Road.
Yeah.
On a rickshaw. That is a challenge. Any way you cut it. Coming from the BB lot, I can see it
Just
happening.
drop them off at the.
Ted,
you could just drop them off at the Bastion building.
Yeah, it's possible. That's a good idea.
But you could pick them up at Schley, just drop them at the Bastion building and head back on.
It's a good idea. That way you don't have to cross a major thoroughfare.
Ted, did you just say, I couldn't hear you. Did you say you thought BB would be?
I think that would be an easy one too, because it's straight up Market Street.
Right. Yep.
Well, that one we could have the historic district ride people over on horse carriages.
We've had horse carriages in this town before. I think you remember that. Then you have another problem called litter, called manure. Anyway. So, I mean, do you want to recommend to council that there's going to consider an increase in the meters? What is your feeling about that? I mean, I like the idea of using the money for a purpose that's dedicated, you know, to create something, whether it's a rickshaw type situation, or if maybe it's to help fund the social media person. The monies that would be generated to help us identify other parking. That's a possibility.
Mayor, I don't know if it affects the discussion or not, but what we've been talking about in this committee.
Yep.
And this doesn't even include BB or the Little League, some of the ones I don't know about, but we're talking about creating 110 free spaces, which is probably more than the number of meter spaces in the 2nd Street corridor.
There are only 90 downtown.
Yeah, so, I mean, it seems to me that it would affect this discussion, that you're creating so many more spaces that are free, that the ones downtown would be valuable.
Exactly. I agree with you. Thanks, Charlie.
Ted, would it be useful to have me convene a meeting of the downtown group and ask if they would like to make a recommendation or a request from
Sure.
city council to waive the parking meter fees in the morning again,
Sure,
rather than have this committee make that recommendation that
absolutely.
they
That's
come
fine.
from the merchants themselves.
Okay, that's fine. So I'm not hearing any pro or con definite about increasing the fee.
Does anyone know the setup in Rehoboth? You cannot use quarters, right? It's through those, you know, they have those,
You can use quarters in Rehoboth.
you can?
Yeah, I've done it.
Not on Rehoboth Avenue, I don't think.
I have,
know
well,
they've
unless
got
they've
the
changed
sta-
it since,
They've got the station meters, so
Yeah.
maybe you can put quarters in them.
I've done it.
On the stations you have?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
It's been, I didn't do it last season, but it was a year ago,
Okay.
a year and a half ago, but.
Can someone with more history than me answer this? Is it true that Jolly Trolley in some ways provides a jitney service within the most congested area of Rehoboth?
Yes,
Or
they do.
in
Yes.
parking? Does-
And we've talked to them about providing a service in the.
Right. What does that look like when we say they do? Like, I have no visibility. Like, how does the Jolly Trolley work in Rehoboth? Is it running all the time and picking people up, and is it connecting them to outer lots? I'm asking because obviously that would be, if the answer is yes, that would be a learning opportunity for us. Maybe that's why they can charge those higher rates on Rehoboth, is because they've already got a connector service to those outer parking areas. I just don't know. I don't
know about the outer lots. I know it connects Rehoboth and Dewey.
Right.
I think it's more just like a taxi service almost.
I think, isn't it more like a circulating service?
Yeah.
That just kind of circulates through downtown and then goes down.
Yeah, I haven't seen it off of like the Rehoboth Avenue area though.
Yeah, but
I
it does
think you're right. It comes up Route 1 in Dewey and then up like over Silver Lake
Right.
to Rehoboth Avenue and then comes out Rehoboth Avenue.
I don't think it goes out to satellite lots that I'm aware of,
Right.
but we
And
can
is
find out.
Is it free? Is it, no?
No,
No,
No, it does not receive any subsidy. They charge you, you get on and they charge you.
and when we had a proposal made by them to come to Lewis, they wanted us to buy the equipment, which came in at about $250,000.
Whoa.
And that was what, Betsy, you were there. I think it was like 5 years.
yeah,
It's like 5 years ago.
exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, we can go back to Jolly Trolley and get the information again, get more updated information, but
I don't
they
think
were,
that's I think what people said, I don't know if that's necessary. I think everybody agrees it's not really connecting like outside parking. It's just sort of this. It
Yeah.
doesn't operate in the way that we might consider something operating in Lewis, I don't think.
well, Betsy, you can you solicit the merchants fairly quickly, put out an email maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we could make we don't have to put a dollar amount on a recommendation to increase or not increase. We could just say, to council that, recognizing the meters haven't been changed, that should be evaluated further with some kind of potential use of the increase that would generate being utilized to help social media updates or whatever we wanted to do. I mean, I'm just looking for what do you all want to do, or we can just leave it alone.
I guess for me is the idea of just raising rates. So it's not connected to like something broader, like just in and of itself. There won't be zones, or I think Nancy brought that up. It seems like that's the case. How is it that the reason to vote yes or let's do it is that we want to be in line with, like, what's the goal? Is it to be in line with Rehoboth and we feel like we're not competitive in our rates and we're leaving money on the table for the city? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is the moving factor?
That was my question. What I was thinking too is, what are we trying to achieve by doing it? Is it to get more rotation, like get the, you know, the cars flipping faster because it costs more? You know, I think that's a great question.
My thought process is that you incentivize people to go seek out the free or the cheaper lots,
Right.
because they're paying a premium for the Second Street parking. So maybe it's like $2 on Second Street, $1 on Third or on the
$10
Front
an
Street
hour
lot.
on
And
Second Street. That'll push them up there.
Yeah, and that's why I agree with you, Andrew, and that's why I think to me, it would make more sense to have this discussion when we really have a date, when we're in a sense going to be launching, you know, these renewed lots like Schley and launching better signage, because otherwise, I mean, you can raise it now and people get used to the higher rate, and I don't think it will be an incentive to go to Schley. It's easier, I think, to make a behavior change when you have a lot of levers that you're pushing to make it happen, and doing those all at once.
Well, I mean, that, you know, the thing is that this is all going to come down to a budget issue. This committee just needs to make a recommendation. A recommendation could be that the rates should be raised as the satellite park lots become available. That could be a recommendation. So, I mean, you could couch it in that kind of phrase, and then council can do what they want to. But I think, you know, I think Andrew's right. You try to incentivize them. To Matt, your point about, are we trying to get people to move through faster? We already have a 3-hour limit in downtown parking. So I don't think there's any desire to move people through faster that's doing this. It's just a matter of, you know, what is, obviously the cost of operations are, you know, are going up. We recognize a fair amount of revenue out of those, and we do have meter patrol. Many of you have noticed that we don't enforce the 3-hour limit off season, and we've had numerous complaints from merchants about people, whoever, parking and all day long in the parking spaces downtown. There's no availability. So this year we have hired one of our meter people to come back and enforce the 3-hour limit in off season. That's an added cost of operation. Has to be paid for some way. And, you know, an increase in a fee is one way to help pay for it. I mean, I just throw that out as some examples of how, you know, and we also, I think the chief is going to recommend in his budget that we go back to hiring seasonal patrol officers, or which I think many of you and many of the people in town are felt very happy about having what we used to call the bicycle cops. And we abandoned that a couple of years ago. And after requests for more activity more police presence on the beach and elsewhere, and public safety, helping at the concerts and things like that, we're going back to those things. Those all cost money. And you know, a minor increase or an increase in parking fees, some of that money could be diverted there, or it could be diverted to help with the social media presence that we've been talking about most of the morning. So I just throw those out as some ideas.
Could we also make a recommendation to have the city do an RFP soliciting an operator for a jitney to kind of tie in with this idea that we're opening up these remote free lots, and along with it, we're trying to incentivize people to do it and break down the barriers, like i.e. it's a 10-minute walk versus they get on, you know, and it's certainly for people that have mobility issues. Is that something we could do?
Could
Or
certainly-
recommend that the city do?
We can.
I would be in favor of something like that, because I think just opening up the Schley lot and making it more attractive is not necessarily going to increase usage of the lot. There's a reason why people don't, and I'm one of those people that doesn't I don't park all the way down at Schley. I park closer to that and then walk. So
I think when we talk about doing an RFP for a jitney of some sort, whether it's a bicycle or whatever, we need to actually like run some numbers, because Charlie, can you remind me how many parking spaces are there at Schley?
25.
Okay. I'm just trying in my head to do, some calculations, and I'm not great at mental math. But the thinking is this, that if people who park at Schley, it's free, so there's not a 3-hour limit. They're going to be there for multiple hours. And if this jitney is just going from Schley to the Bastion building, that's not a very long trip. It seems to me they're going to be spending a lot of time sitting around without anyone. Like, I think to really make this, to have this practical, it probably needs to be something that also goes over to the ballpark parking lot, or, other, whatever other area, whether it's near the nursing home, at the the other places where we have free parking. Otherwise, it's hard for me to, and I just based on back of the envelope with some mental math and numbers, it's hard for me to conceive of how it could make sense financially, or in terms of having somebody sitting around waiting for somebody to decide they're either going to or coming from that lot.
I think a jitney is a much bigger operation.
I meant rickshaw, or, that
The
bicycle.
rickshaw is a different thing, but a jitney, you would need to have more of a circulator type jitney. It might go to the library and as well as over to the beach. And we've looked at that kind of thing before.
Even a rickshaw from that parking lot, it's hard for me to think with 25 people parking, and it's not always full, how often that person would cycle back and forth and have somebody to take,
I agree. Yeah.
Well, you maybe have to set up a schedule.
Like a circuit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if they're just going from Bastion and back, it's, it's a pretty,
That's a pretty short run.
it's a pretty rapid thing. Otherwise, you're having them sit and wait for a half hour at Bastion, then drive back, and
Or maybe more than that. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think from a practical perspective. I like the idea of trying to make it easy for people at these free lots to make it into town. But I think we would probably be thinking of something that that would service all of the free lots, not just that one.
And the paid lot out at the beach.
Yeah.
Well, you got Otis Smith lot too. So.
What about the valet service? I'm going back a year when we had Matt brought in, is it Jerry? I don't know his last name anymore, but who talked about, I think in my mind, I remember the ability to move like 100 cars off. I don't know, but what about the concept of a valet service?
That has not gone anywhere that I'm aware of. Matt, have you? And I know the city sort of lost contact with Jerry's house, so.
Yeah, we were delayed in getting some stuff back to him, and then when we got it to him and then followed up, we never heard back from him.
Well, just forgetting Jerry, in general, would a valet service of some sort help this problem of connection? And would it be more cost effective versus, I would assume it is, than the jitney, a full on trolley?
Yeah, it might be more effective, but I think you'd have to look at the hours of operation of it very carefully, because I don't think it's probably something that people will be more apt to use it during the dinner hour
Yeah,
than during the daytime hour. That would be my guess. Purely a guess. I can see people who are, going to and from a restaurant or, that kind of stuff, or an event. Well, we have a lot of things here to consider in terms of what you want to do in terms of recommendation about the whole metering system. And we're coming down to an end where we need to get our report prepared to go to council. It is actually technically is due next Monday. I've started a draft of it. What I thought I would do is continue to work on the draft of it, share it, circulate it. I'm wondering if we could schedule another meeting next Monday morning at the same time to go over this and see if we're in agreement of where we go with this and how what we want to submit to council. Does next Monday morning at 8:30 work for you all?
Yes.
yes.
Okay. All right, so we'll post the meeting for next Monday. In the meantime, and Andrew and we'll work on this draft and put it together and get it out to everybody so you can take a look at it. Okay. All right. Any other comments here this morning? Betsy, if you could do your survey of the downtown merchants and get it back to us by the end of the week, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get a call together on Thursday morning.
Okay. Great. Terrific. Thank you. Any other comments this morning? Okay. Well, it is 9:49. I think we've covered a lot this morning. Good discussion. Charlie, thank you for all your work on coming up with prices. There's quite a disparity between the two prices. You also came up with a preliminary price just in keeping everybody informed on the Slay Avenue reconfiguration. I think that is roughly $92,000 in order to reconfigure that lot, rotating that. So that estimate that Charlie provided will become part of the report as well.
And just so everybody's aware, that includes not only the parking lot, but the ADA accessibility to Franklin Avenue, the bike racks, landscaping estimates and allowances, and a few others, moving the this car charging station and the lights. So it's everything that we talked about.
Okay. No further
I have a
discussion.
question about the merge meeting on Thursday night. Are you going to solicit a quote from them about getting signage off of the bike path there to direct people to where they can park their bikes and walk into town?
So what I had asked him was to break out a parking specific estimate, but we can raise that on Thursday.
Okay. Yeah, obviously he's primarily doing just signage in general for parking lots, but it's a good question. We could put that into the ask.
Well, I'm thinking, that people coming off of the trails,
Right.
Aren't going to see those signs on the city
Right.
streets until they're already there.
Right. Good point. Okay. All right. So hopefully you can all join Thursday night and we'll get back together then again on Monday morning and we'll go from there. All right. Thank you very much. I think we can adjourn this meeting. Thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate your input.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.